it's not enough to just be a quote unquote great guy. It's like, you have to be a great guy who's also willing to put yourself out there to say, hey, look, everybody, I'm a great guy and here's why.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to demonstrate that in ways that are not easily faked, because it's a woman's job to figure out, okay, is this guy really a great guy, or is this guy somebody who's just practiced acting and looking like he's a great guy?
Well, and I think what the doctor would say here is, what does great guy even mean? Like, what makes you great?
Right.
You need to go further than that. You can't just say I'm a great guy. Oh, because what you?
Oh, one of the last things
like animals. I mean, like,
one of the last things you should do is try to use your words to convince people you're a great guy, because words are super cheap. Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast. This is Charles, and this episode is coming to you a little later than planned. My work schedule has been really busy, and also I had some technical issues that took longer to resolve, but here we are. You're getting an episode now, another one on Monday, and then we'll be back to our usual schedule. This week, we're talking about Dr. Orion Taraban's appearance on Diary of a CEO. He's a psychologist with a very direct, no-nonsense style who looks at relationships through the lens of behavioral economics. His ideas are provocative, that men are invisible until they bring value, that relationships are fundamentally transactional, and that masculinity comes down to spine and balls. Dan and I will dig into what we agree with, where we push back, and how his perspective compares with other voices we've explored on the show. For all of our full episodes, audio and video, check out mindfullymasculine.com and enjoy.
Good morning, Charles.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Nice to see you this morning.
Is this where I said it's good to see you too?
I'll leave you.
And I gotta lie?
How dare you?
No, of course. It's always good to see you.
It's part of your day.
It is. No, best part of my week.
We have still yet to land on a long-term series like we usually do, and we're kind of just exploring some of the things that interest us right now that we find interesting. And so our last episode was about the AI girlfriends, and as part of that, we watched 3 video clips where it was discussed, and one of those clips kind of grabbed us both a little harder than the other two, which was it was from an excerpt from the Diary of a CEO podcast with Orion Taraban, who is a doctor of psychology, and he has a very prominent YouTube channel. I'm surprised I'd never heard of this guy before. Maybe I'd seen his stuff and just hadn't looked at it, but Psychax is the name of his YouTube channel. And he's written a book called The Value of Others. And so he basically looks at romantic or sexual relationships through the prism of behavioral economics. And I find his style really appeals to me, because he really just kind of boils everything down to data. And here's how people behave, and here's why they behave that way, and it's very analytical, which, like, I always try to remember when I come upon information like that and it really resonates with me. I also try to keep in mind, okay, man, there are some people who would really not like this at all, just because the style is not what they're looking for when it comes to relationship advice. I mean, and I'm a little bit of I'm a bit sentimental, I'm a bit romantic, and I'm a bit in the camp of, I want my relationship advice, or just the way I talk about relationships, I want there to be a little bit of woo-woo and magic in there. And this guy has no time for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
To the point where, I've watched the full episode that we're going to talk about today, and I've also listened to his entire book. And I found both to be extremely valuable, but also, like, as I was listening to it, I was very aware of the fact, like, the things that make me into this are the things that I think a lot of other people would be like, I am not into this at all.
Interesting. The way I look at it is, I appreciate him because he explains to me why the woo-woo, some of that woo-woo exists. Like and to me, that kind of validates it and allows me to then, I guess, more freely dive into those types of experiences, and knowing that there is a reason for it. It's not all based on pure feelings. And it reassures me that a lot of my instincts and intuitions are more accurate than I actually was believing to begin with. I was kind of dismissing it. Oh, I'm doing this or she's doing that because of just the way we feel, and there's no real reason for it. And then my mind goes to, okay, could that be leading us down a dangerous path? And it could be, but he explains what paths you possibly could take based on what you're doing in those specific situations. And I guess we'll get more into those specific examples on the podcast.
Yeah. Can you think of anything in particular that really jumped out or resonated with you the most of what he had to say? I mean, it doesn't have to be the number one.
Yeah.
Something big that really.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it was just that, be aware of what you're bringing to the table, right? In terms of the energy and the value that you bring to the relationship. People are people are in relationships. They have relationships because they're getting something out of it, right? At some level, right?
Value
exchange. And the value exchange, and it could just be good feelings. That is a valid. That you are bringing somebody good feelings, and that is valid. And to me, that is not transactional. That is not a cold, business type of relationship.
It is transactional, but I think part of what he wants to do is kind of take the negative stigma away from a word like transactional.
Right.
I don't remember exactly the phraseology he uses, but he basically says a successful relationship happens when two people are trading non-identical goods that are of comparable value to each other. Because, I mean, if you and I are in a business relationship and all I have to offer you are the exact same things you have to offer me, no matter how valuable they are, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's no relationship to be had there. If all you can offer me is what I already have, and all I can offer you is what you already have,
right,
then there's no reason for us to trade or engage with each other at all.
Exactly.
It has to be, I've got something to give you, and you've got something to give me, and they're very different from each other, but we both think that they're worth about the same.
Right.
And the closer we can get to that, so the more different your offering is from mine, and mine is from yours, the more I'm like, ooh, this is not something I can't make this up on my own. I have to get this from someone else. And the more close they are in value to each other, the more excited I'm going to be to engage in that transaction with you. And we're okay with talking about business relationships that way 100%, because, I talk about capitalism and how I consider myself a capitalist. And there's a lot of, especially among the people I hang out with, because I spend a lot of time with both girls and guys who kind of lean center left or further than that. And so capitalism has a bit of a negative connotation among young people, among a lot of women, among anybody who considers themselves leftist or progressive. And what I always say is, capitalism to me is not, that bank's too big to fail, we have to hand them a bunch of money. Capitalism to me is, the farmer grows the best tomatoes you've ever tasted and he takes them to the market and you're happy to hand over $5 for a little basket.
Sure.
That's the version of capitalism that I support and that I think is good for people. And so this kind of capitalism where his tomatoes are worth at least his little basket's worth at least $5 to me, and I'm happy to hand it over. And my $5 is worth way more to him than his basket of tomatoes.
Yeah.
And so we're able to both engage in a transaction that we both walk away feeling really good about. And transferring that to personal relationships gets a little cringy for people sometimes. And I understand that, but that doesn't make it not true.
Right.
And that's what I loved about what this guy had to say, and focusing on what those things are that men and women, and in the book he uses the analogy of captains and passengers, and how those don't necessarily correlate to gender at all. But yeah, you basically, you have to come into the relationship with two different roles and two different needs if you're going to have, and we've talked about that with other books that we've explored too, about polarity. There has to be a big enough difference in what you want and what you offer in order to find somebody that is going to want to engage with you. And yeah, I like the idea of being able to understand this in terms that we're all, maybe not all, but many of us are more familiar with, which is the terms of, a trading transaction.
Yeah.
But again, I realize how some people could get uncomfortable with that. One of the things is a concern of his that he talked about quite a bit on the podcast is the fact that relationships, the number of relationships are decreasing. And I was a little surprised to find that out. That's relationships across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's casual relationships, it's dating relationships, it's marriages. It's like just two people coming together and choosing to get in a relationship with each other is not happening as much. And why do you think that is? Like what jumps out to you about that?
I think these days we have a lot more options available to us. And so we don't necessarily need to get multiple options met or needs met from one person. And I think in the past, when we didn't have as much access to information, we didn't have as much access to travel, we were limited in terms of the options we had available to us in terms of relationships. And so a lot of times we'd end up kind of being in a relationship with somebody and needing to have that relationship in order to get a lot of our needs met. Whereas now we've got so many different, even not even like sexually related, right? So like just interests. In the video, he talks about how he wanted to find somebody. He had all these selection criteria coming up, looking for a partner, a woman that he could not only have a romantic relationship with, but also want to talk about quantum mechanics and loved horseback riding and all this. And, he went to a counselor and the guy was like, why do you need a woman to talk about quantum mechanics? Like, why? And he thought about it. No, you can find a guy or a group of people to meet all those individual needs. And I think that's one of the reasons now is people are decreasing the amount of relationships we have is because romantic relationships is because we can get those needs met from other ways, including pornography, right? So that's another.
You did talk about that quite a bit.
And that's the thing is a lot of younger guys, they're falling into these, pornography addictions because first of all, it's everywhere, right? So it's on all the social media platforms. It's not just on OnlyFans and everything else,
looking for porn to find porn.
And it's very and exactly. So it's very accessible and it's not quite as good as having, sex with somebody, but it's, it's close enough, or they're kind of settling for that.
And the point,
but good enough.
And the point you brought up in the last episode was, if you've never had a girlfriend before, you don't know how
good it would be.
You don't know how much different, whacking off to porn by yourself is from having a woman in your life who wants to be physically intimate with you.
Right.
And so if you never, sampled the difference, then you're never going to realize what you're missing out on. You're just going to assume, it's probably about the same.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is that there's a cost to finding and having a girlfriend, right? In terms of time and effort and also finances as well, right? It's a lot less time, a lot less effort, and a lot less
emotional vulnerability and the potential for
everything, right? So you really need to be sold that the juice is worth the squeeze,
right,
in order to make that effort. And so, that's why guys are having relationships with AI girlfriends and with OnlyFans girls and everything else, right? It's a lot easier.
Yeah, and it's. Again, it's really hard for me to get concerned with the macro level of, if this trend continues, there's going to be a population collapse. And it's, as two guys without kids, it's like, big deal. It's not going to be my problem.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to get excited about trying to participate in the macro level fixes of this when I really, it'll work out the way that it works out.
Yeah.
If there's a population collapse and if the world gets worse because we're not making enough babies, right now my attitude about that, and that could change, who knows what the future is going to hold. Maybe, I end up having a kid and then it becomes a really big deal to me. But that's not right now. So it's like, you know, I don't really care that much.
He did make an interesting point that is like a tangent to that, which is if guys are at home pleasuring themselves, masturbating to porn all the time, they then lose the drive to do other things and be contributing members of society in terms of building companies and, you know, building bridges and roads and all the other things that humans do when men are in a horny state, quote unquote, right? It drives you to do things. Same thing that hunger, you're not going to go and hunt unless you're hungry, right? So why are you going to go and risk yourself out in the wilderness trying to hunt down some animal if you're not hungry? It's not worth it.
Correct.
Same thing. You need to be hungry and horny in this case. If you're a little horny, you're going to tend to do things more. And I know when I've taken a break from masturbating, I do have more energy, and I do feel like I wanted to go out and do more things. It's not always sex related, but I do feel like there's this underlying base of energy that rises up. I already have fairly low energy because I don't sleep well most of the time. So I'm very sensitive to knowing when I've got more energy and when I've got less energy. And I know the times where I've taken a break from masturbating. Yeah, I've definitely got more energy.
All right. Well, if I ever take a break, I will weigh in and let you know how that.
Because I know you've got your stance on that. Where I know Glover was talking about not, going for a while, and I think other people that we've read about have said,
and I've complained about it. Like, why is
right?
Everybody talking about masturbate. Like, if you're an influencer in the masculine space, the first thing you have to do is start telling people not to masturbate anymore. And it's like, I am not signing on to that.
Right.
I'm not telling people masturbate more, masturbate less, masturbate at all. I'm staying out of it. So you do what you want to do. I've never, at the times that I've been single and I've been looking for a partner, either by being more social or by being on the apps or whatever, I've never felt like my masturbation frequency would have an impact on that.
Well, I think that also comes down to our testosterone levels as well. So that's the thing. Is I think if you're
yours
like
is a greater than sign in the number 1600, maybe
then
you don't need to take a break.
Right. That's the thing. Is more, maybe that's more maintenance than anything else. Right. That's a So I think if you don't have, and these days, the average guy's testosterone level is a lot lower than it was 30, 40 years ago. It's just constantly decreasing.
And I've never seen really any conclusive evidence. I mean, people talk about microplastics, they'll talk about pollution, they'll talk about all sorts of things, but and they'll also talk about the psychological effect. Well, you're not spending time around other men doing difficult things, and that has an impact on it as well.
I think
it's probably
our society is moving. It's all generally moving the testosterone level down because also as you gain weight, the fat that you carry gives off estrogen too. And that basically negates the testosterone you have in your body as well. So and we all know that the world is getting fatter and we're not getting any thinner.
At least the West is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's making its way over to the East too with our foods and everything else. Yeah. So absolutely. I think it's a logical conclusion that, we're not promoting more testosterone in men in any way.
Yeah. And
from anything in our lifestyles.
Yeah. And we've talked about how just, a slight bump in that can motivate you to do things that you were not willing to do otherwise.
Right.
And whether that's through, you start lifting, you start eating better, or you start getting exogenous hormone injections, it does change your willingness to get up and get crap done. And it just, because it's weird. You feel uncomfortable if you're not getting up and getting crap done.
Yep.
And it's nice to have, a magic vial that is able to make that transform in the lives of many men our age and younger.
And the nice thing is that sometimes that's just the kickstart that you need.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got the energy to do this. Well, maybe now I'm more willing to eat that food that I'm not really a fan of and pay attention to the things that I'm eating. And maybe I'll start walking or moving or exercising more.
Going out for long walks, definitely.
And so
when I started,
all that's
okay, now it's a habit. Now it's something that is
right.
My identity is now I'm a guy who goes out for long walks and I enjoy it.
Right. And there you go. And then so maybe that's what needs to happen. And then before you know it, the guys who never had girlfriends and never had real sex before, they have it once and like, oh, okay, maybe now that I'm the guy that goes out and has sex, it's like, instead of sitting home and masturbating.
So here's a quote I want to talk about. He says that men are invisible until they offer value. I would say that really applies to everybody. It's just, what do you have to do to offer that value? Where I think women, because, you know, in most Western societies, women are the gatekeepers on sexual intimacy, and women are going to be pursued by men for sexual opportunities. They have some inherent value, and just the fact that they are a woman in a Western society where romantic love and consensual sex is the norm, they get to have some of that value to other men just by being a woman.
Mhm.
Where I don't know that men have the same kind of intrinsic value to women just for being a man. And so, yeah, I do feel like men have to, if they want to be considered as a viable option in a dating market or the sexual marketplace, they have to clearly not only bring something to the table, but have a method of advertising the fact that they bring something to the table.
Well said.
Where it's not enough to just be a quote unquote great guy. It's like, you have to be a great guy who's also willing to put yourself out there to say, hey, look, everybody, I'm a great guy, and here's why.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to demonstrate that in ways that are not easily faked, because it's a woman's job to figure out, okay, is this guy really a great guy, or is this guy somebody who's just practiced acting and looking like he's a great guy?
Well, and I think what the doctor would say here is, what does great guy even mean? Like, what makes you great?
Right.
You need to go further than that. You can't just say I'm a great guy. Oh, because what you?
Oh, one of the last things
you like
animals?
I mean, like,
one of the last things you should do is try to use your words to convince people you're a great guy, because words are super cheap.
Right.
And then I'll decide if
Right.
you're amazing and fun and sexy and hilarious and all those labels that are super easy to just apply to yourself. It's like, no, show don't tell.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly true for men who are looking to attract women. It's like, if you just telling a girl either on your dating profile or in person, I'm smart, I'm successful, I'm funny. And it's like, well, the people who actually are those things don't usually feel the need to tell people that they are.
Yeah.
And so,
But at the same time, you do need to show some sort of,
yeah, you need to demonstrate it, not vocalize it.
Right. So you want to make that impression. And I think it was this video there where the Dr. Orion was saying, you know, guys kind of have it easy because all you need to do is get a haircut and put on a clean suit and or a nice pair of clothes, and you've already gone up, you know, on a 10-point scale, you've already gone up almost a whole point as a man in terms of attractiveness. Whereas women have a little bit more of a difficult time. They have to do a lot of, sometimes plastic surgery and everything else in order to bump up in terms of the initial attractiveness. And he doesn't shy away from that. He basically is like, yeah, you know what? Don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do judge a book by its cover. And that's at least gets you to open the door or open the book to then read what's inside.
Yeah. And
so you need that attractive cover.
You absolutely do. And there are things you can do that are fairly simple to maximize. I mean, hygiene is one of them. I mean, just looking like, you know, you give a damn about being clean and looking clean and smelling clean and stuff like that. You got to do that. You've got to pay people to cut your hair on a regular basis, because I mean, maybe some people can do it on their own and get a pretty good result.
I mean, I got a Flowbee, you know, I just remember, do you remember those?
Oh.
It was a vacuum cleaner with the the blade on it. Oh my God.
My hair was cut by a Flowbee exclusive.
You had one?
Multiple years.
No, get out of here. You actually had one.
Grandparents bought one and cut my hair with a Flowbee for, I would say, probably middle school.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Did it ever come out the way? Did you like it?
It wasn't bad.
Okay.
I mean, it was.
I've never. I mean, in all fairness, I've never used the
It
one.
was mid. It was
okay.
It was fine. It didn't look great, but it didn't look terrible.
Hey,
I mean, I've got really thick hair. Well, I I keep talking to the present tense. I had really thick hair where pretty much anything, I could do a one guard all over the whole thing. And it would look okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, yeah, with the Floby, it was fine. I've looked at some pictures from that time period, and it's like, okay, I look like a kid whose parents cut his hair, but not like disaster level.
Yeah, but back then, I mean, kids' hair, I mean, nobody's walking around like a supermodel. Like, yeah.
Those people had pretty bad hair.
Right.
So it was, late 80s, early 90s. It was all garbage. So it was fine. But one thing he talks about is performative masculinity and plumage and peacocking and things like that. And I think we talked about that. I don't remember if we talked about on last episode, or maybe you and I just talked about it privately. I like the idea of wearing, like when you go out to socialize, whether you're out looking for girls or just hanging out with your friends, I like the idea of having a conversation piece as part of your outfit. And I think that most guys can pick something, like the book by Neil Strauss, The Game, where he talks about that guy Mystery who would wear like a sequin top hat and a pink feather boa. It's like, no, most people should not do that, because I mean, if somebody did that walking into Mathers, I'd be like, look at that fucking clown.
Right.
I mean, yeah. But there is something that you can do that is just a step above what other people are probably willing to do, and that can be your thing. And you don't wear it all the time, and you have like a few of them in your wardrobe. But I think it's important to have a piece that somebody has a good chance of saying, oh, I like that, fill in the blank. Last night I went to jukebox bingo at a local German deli.
Okay.
With my friend Tracy and my friend Other Charles, which is what he calls me. And I wore a shirt I got recently, a short sleeve button up with dinosaurs on it. And sure enough, I had somebody come up to me and say, man, I really like your dinosaur shirt. And, it's a little silly, but it was comfortable. I like wearing clothes with bright colors, and having somebody just come up to tell me that they like my shirt spontaneously, it feels nice.
Yeah.
If you're just wearing, an average heather gray polo shirt, nobody's ever going to walk up to you and say, I like your shirt.
Right, because that could mean actually something else at that point, right? Because it's like nobody right? I feel like nobody does that. Oh, I love your heather gray shirt. It's just like, what are you getting at?
Right. It could be,
right?
Are you attracted to me? Do you like my body? Or it could be, are you trying to sell me something? Or it could be,
right.
If you walk into a place with a shirt that has dinosaurs or cats or avocados on it or something, just something a little out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Because it can be left at just that. It could be like, I like your shirt. And then,
exactly.
And it legitimately could just be, yeah, it's a cute shirt.
Right. Or, if you're looking to meet people and have interactions, you could go immediately into, oh, thanks. I love dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs since I was a kid. My favorite dinosaur is Titanosaur. What's your favorite dinosaur? And you could actually turn it into a social interaction. Obviously, I didn't do any of those things, but I could have if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, it's happened in the past, right?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, I would say figure out what is something that is a little bit uncomfortable for you to wear that you think people might notice, and just go ahead and try it and see what happens. Triple it. Do it head to toe. Clown costume. Yeah, so that is something that I would say is a good habit to at least experiment with and see how it goes. Because again, you got to do something. You don't want to just be the white piece of bread at the restaurant, at the bar, at the run club, at the whatever, because if somebody is interested in you and they think, whether guy, girl, friend, romantic interest, whatever, if they're thinking, man, I'd like to talk to that guy, but I don't know what to say. If you're wearing a slightly silly shirt, boy, it sure makes it easy for them. Yeah. And then there you go, off to the races. He did say something about defining masculinity as, to be a man, you have to have a spine and you have to have balls, which I find the language a little simplistic, but look, the guy's an author, the guy's a personality. He's got to find a way to say something quick and easy that will resonate with people. And so that's, I think, what he was going for there. When he says you have to have a spine, what he's made clear is you have to be willing to stand up and be seen and cast a shadow. And then when he says you have to have balls, what he's referring to is you have to be willing to take that stand and then defend it and be willing to say, yeah, this is what I believe, and I'm not going to back down.
And I like the way he said, when you take a stand, you cast a shadow.
Right.
And now you're going to have to defend. There's people who are going to basically come out of that shadow and try to basically say, hey, look, I'm offended by this, or I've got a problem with this in some way.
Or even just, I have a question about this. Why are you choosing to stand for this instead of...
Oh, that would be nice. People actually still ask questions these days?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, you can get that occasionally.
Okay.
And look, that, I mean, those are, I would say those are the best kind of people. The kind of people
Sure.
that are willing to say, hey, wait a second. I thought you were about this, but now you're standing up for this. That feels like a conflict to me. I'd like to learn more to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I try to
still
approach,
people exist.
I try to approach people that way. When I see, when I see one post that somebody makes online that feels like it's inconsistent with other stuff that they've shared.
Yeah.
I usually try to do that. If there's somebody that matters to me and that I know personally, then I do that with them, not in front of everybody else, but like, hey, you've said that this is a value, but now you're saying this, so I'm a little confused. Is that something you want to talk about? And I've had to do it recently, actually.
And what was Trump's response to that?
He and I, we don't talk, we don't communicate directly very often.
Oh, okay.
Not anymore. I think he's changed. We're not as close as we used to be. Yeah. We would hang out on the island. He was so much more easygoing. That's gonna get cut. Okay. One thing that we recently talked a lot with about Mel Robbins' book, the Let Them Theory, and we've also explored Dr. Glover's work quite a bit. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up was, do you see any big differences between, and you could throw in the Gottmans, really anybody else we've talked about on the show, between Taraban's method and any of the other visionaries and luminaries that we've discussed before? Do you see anything much different?
I don't see the end result being any different.
Yeah, for me, it's all about tone. He's got a different tone than the other ones have, but
Yeah,
I don't think he's really suggested anything
and
that far.
I think he really honors that behavioral economics approach to things. And I appreciate that, because that really answers the why. And I have a lot of times it's like, well, why? I'm curious, why do we behave this way? Or why do humans interact this way? Or why do we feel this way? And he has a great way of kind of cutting right through all of the fluff and the shoulds that we get from society and from our world around us about, people should be acting this way or should be acting that way. Even if they do align with behavioral economics, what he's talking about, it's not clear. Those other people that we've been listening to, it's not clear exactly why they have like kind of touched it or danced around it. I feel he kind of gets to the root of it.
Yeah, I would say that too. And again, his delivery method is one that I think, especially, listening to his audiobook, he really does get into the weeds with the behavioral economics to the point where I think it could, unless you're really motivated to understand, and sort of get a fresh perspective on relationships.
Yeah.
It can grate on you a little bit. It's like, okay, I feel like I'm listening to a 13-hour long college lecture, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I liked listening to his book, and I liked his style. And I think he was good at reading it and good at performing the reading. But I could definitely see somebody thinking, this isn't. But you're right. He cut the BS to the point where he said stuff that would be upsetting to some people, and because it's just not stuff we're used to hearing in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
One of the points he makes is that when it comes to relationships, men and women will both essentially settle for the best partner they think they're capable of getting. And so what's nice is when you find yourself in a situation where you're with a woman who you think is the best girl you could ever get, and she thinks you're the best guy you could ever get, and you live happily ever after.
And he said that's like a happy accident. That's not
Right.
That's not usually the case. You can have a relationship but not be in love.
Yeah, that was, the whole, his attitude about love and being in love and relationships as far as romantic love goes. And he delves into that quite deeply in his book. There were some bitter pills to swallow.
So
with looking at things that way.
did we get into on the last podcast about his take on compromise? I don't remember if that was us talking again or if that was on the podcast, where he basically doesn't believe in compromise. And on the Diary of the CEO podcast, Stephen was asking him, is just like, well, doesn't everybody have to compromise when when you get into a relationship? Isn't that part of it? And he said, just be careful of using that term, because that implies that you are sacrificing something that you want, and almost with this expectation that the other person is going to sacrifice something that they want. And that brings in like a dangerous situation. And what was enlightening for me was the way he reframed that and said, instead of having those compromises, rethink your selection criteria before you go into a relationship. So have fewer ands, right? So I want somebody who
deal breakers,
right? So the more ands you have, the more expensive it is in terms of what or how difficult it's going to be to live in and have a happy relationship if you've got all of these requirements. And you said you just kind of revisit what you want. So that's kind of goes back to what I was saying before about I want a woman who I can have a romantic relationship and, is a good cook and wants to talk about quantum mechanics and, loves to go horseback riding and all these other things. And instead, figure out what you want out of a romantic partner and all those other ands, the ability to be a good bowling partner and all these other things, find that from other places and other people.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a great way of thinking about going into relationships where you're not then requiring a compromise. And what he said was be a little selfish and be loud about being selfish. So meaning don't be afraid to communicate what you want. And so that way you find somebody who then hears that communication, hears the things that you need and that you want, and is okay with them, so that it is not down the road a compromise for them where they're like, oh, I didn't realize you wanted this, or you needed things this way, or you wanted to behave in that way, because you kind of hit it at the beginning. Right. You're trying to put your best foot forward. You didn't want to be too demanding and things like that. He's like, no, you really should be a little bit selfish and vocalize that. And that's really about being your true self.
Yeah. One of the things he gets into in the book, which I'll happily provide a little bit of a preview on because it's very relevant to what we're talking about right now, is he's mostly against the idea of dating, where he says that what most of us do when we are dating someone is we try to create the most novel and exciting version of our life and then grab them by the hand and walk them through that, where it's like other experts in the field that you and I agree with, the first time you meet somebody new, it's either let's grab a quick drink or let's grab coffee and have a conversation, try to figure out what each of us is actually about. But he says, as soon as it's possible, your time that you spend dating this person should be more about bringing them into kind of the routine of your life and not going straight to let's go out and play mini golf. He's like, if you're an avid mini golfer, then by all means bring her along. But if you're not, and you're just going out of your way to do things that you think she'll find fun, and going on a weekend trip to a spa that you've never been to before and never would go to on your own, and you're just doing it to bring her along, it's like, you're just prolonging this process of showing somebody else the most exciting version of your life that doesn't actually exist and getting them used to that. And then by the time real life kicks in and your real schedule kicks in and your real habits and interests kick in, it's like, who is this person? This isn't who I got to know over the last.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Absolutely. Because, yeah, if you're not seeing the day to day right at the very beginning, you don't even have anything to contrast it with. It's kind of like this whole thing we're talking about with the guys who don't know what it's like to have sex with a woman because they've never had it before.
Right.
Where it's like, all right, well, you're not seeing what reality is at that point.
Right.
And yeah, it's okay to do those fun things, but this should be an occasional vacation or whatever. But yeah, the root of that relationship really should be founded on what your day-to-day routine looks like.
Right. And so
That's that.
I mean,
but then how do you convey that? How do you pull something like that off in reality?
I mean, I think you basically have to keep your dates as informal and as close to the kinds of things that you enjoy and you kind of do solo. So that is, going out for coffee, going out for fun but inexpensive meals, going for walks. I mean, in my case, going for walks, basically building enough rapport up that she feels safe enough with you that spending some time at her house or spending some time at your house and just cooking dinner together and watching a movie or playing a board game. I mean, you don't invite somebody to do that for the first date because any sane woman is going to be like, no, I'm not coming to your house, to
Uno and chill.
Yeah, exactly. Not for a first date. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody is open to it and you're looking to keep things casual, I get it. But I think most women would be reasonably
obviously
scared off or
right.
turned off
you need some rapport. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
you build some rapport, you show yourself as a sane, safe person, but then as soon as you can get it to the point of let's hang out and
so no big fancy dinners, no no weekend cruises to places. Okay.
Certainly not at the beginning, not until you're in an established relationship with somebody that you want to be in a relationship with. And I'm revisiting part 2 of Dr. Glover's book that you and I are going to cover at some point, Dating Essentials for Men. And his big thing that he emphasizes is delay sex as long as you can as well, so that you can really keep your head on the target of, I need to figure out what this gal's about, whether we're compatible. And as soon as I see some big signs that we're not, I need to cut this off so that I'm not wasting her time and she's not wasting mine, and I can move on to spending my time with somebody else. And that gets harder after you started having sex with somebody.
100%.
So, yeah. And I think Taraban would probably agree with that as well. That it's better to be in a position where you can hire slow and fire fast. And as much as men would probably have the tendency to dismiss that and say, no, just because I start having sex with a girl doesn't mean it's not going to be harder for me to break up with her. It's like, well, I get the motivation why you might feel the need to say that, but
because you want to have sex. That's why you're saying. That's the only reason why you're saying it, right?
But hey, you and I are different guys in a lot of different ways, but we both kind of agree with that. Like, if you're in a new relationship and you start having sex with somebody, it is going to be more difficult for you.
When has it ever not been more difficult?
Right.
I mean,
it's harder to pull the plug, and that's why.
But everybody's the exception, right? It's nothing of everything's an exception,
right? And that's why, with some of the breakup and reconciliation advice that you and I have talked about, where a guy is like, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me, I'd love to get back together with her. Some of the advice out there is, basically, okay, well, if she reaches out to you, if she makes contact, get her back to your place for dinner and, have fun and hook up with her. And my counter advice is, no, do not do that, because it's one thing to reestablish contact with someone that you've dated because, maybe you guys have changed and grown in a way where a relationship now might work in ways that it didn't before. But if you jump back into having sex with your former partner as soon as you possibly can, then there's a good chance that both of you are going to think that a reconciled relationship is the best idea, even though it might not be.
And the other part of that is you don't know how this person has changed or hasn't changed. And you also don't know how that's going to mix in with the changes that you've had since you've been in that relationship.
Right.
And you start throwing, like you said, sex in there. Now the waters are muddied, and it's going to be very difficult to distinguish, because you're going to go back to old routines as well. So you're going to be drawn back to old behaviors, not from having that closeness, from having that intimacy.
Yeah, the more that feels like old times, the more you're going to act like old times.
Mhm.
And the way you acted in the old times is what led you to getting broken up with in the first place.
Yeah.
So I would say, and yeah, it's the idea that, you know, two people are in a relationship and they split up and go their separate ways. The odds that while they've gone their separate ways, they've grown and healed in ways that are going to bring them back together, it's pretty slim. Usually the opposite happens. You know, either they don't grow at all. Either one of the two parties, you know, just devolves as a result of the breakup and, you know, relies on some of their maladaptive coping skills to get through the pain of the breakup. Or if they do both experience some kind of a glow up and a grow up, it's more likely than not that that's going to be taking them further apart from the people that found each other in the first place and not back together. It's not impossible,
Right.
but it's a realization that you should have in the back of your head. But we can revisit breakups and makeups down the road in a little bit more detail. One of the frustrations I see men sharing online is the idea of they kind of feel entitled to having good romantic relationships because they're good guys or because they're nice guys or because they're kind men. And what is clear from Dr. Taraban's work and also just, you know, one of the things I always recommend is, guys, you should have women who are your friends and women who are your friends that you're not trying to make them your girlfriend. They're just your friends, and you're able to be honest and non-judgmental with each other. And you can ask them their opinions on what holes you might have in your game. And again, you have to cultivate a relationship with a woman where she feels safe enough to be honest with you, that you're not going to freak out, blow up, start crying or something like that. Because if she's got a taste that you might do any of those things, you're not going to get a straight answer from her. And I don't blame her. She doesn't want to put up with that. None of us do. So, but you should be able to say to your girlfriends, okay, I'm not getting the results that I would like out of my romantic relationships. If I gave you a pass to offer any criticism that comes to mind, and I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to freak out. I really am looking to improve myself. What would you say I needed to focus on? Definitely do that. And keep in mind that being a nice guy, being a kind guy, not being a dangerous guy, all those things are the bare minimum. So for healthy women, none of those are going to set you apart from their other options. Mm-hmm. That is going to be the absolute least that they're looking for. Like, oh, you're a good guy. Oh, you're not going to make a unwanted physical pass at me during a date. Like, yeah, no crap. That is the bare minimum for how a civilized, attractive man with lots of options behaves.
Yeah.
Only a desperate guy who is, you know, either ethically or mentally unbalanced is going to think that, oh, well, you know, I didn't try to kiss her when she clearly didn't want to kiss me, so that makes me a good person. No, that just, again, for healthy women, that is the bare minimum.
Yep.
And so if that's the kind of girl you're looking for, which we all should be, you shouldn't be giving yourself credit for just being normal and expecting women to lay down and spread their legs for you just because you're not a terrible person. All right. So we'll leave it there, and we'll see what we come up with for the next episode. Thanks, Dan. Bye-bye. That wraps up this episode of the Mindfully Masculine podcast. We hope our conversation about Dr. Orion Taraban's ideas gave you something to think about, whether it's the way you view relationships, masculinity, or just the role you play in your own life. We'll be back with another episode on Monday and then return to our regular release schedule. For all of our full episodes, audio and video, visit mindfullymasculine.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.